Joe for mETH Protocol, and I'll be your host. So today we're here to mark a major milestone, in institutional crypto adoption on Ethereum. Republic Technologies, the Ethereum Treasury of Beyond Medical Technologies, a publicly listed company, has officially allocated mETH to its ETH holdings. So this marks the first ever time that a liquid staking token has appeared on the balance sheet of a public company. So we're very excited to have today, the CEO of Republic Technologies, Daniel, joining us today to unpack what this moment means for the future of Ethereum native view and how corporate treasuries can now gain structured access to on-chain strategies. We also explore how mETH Protocol is, expanding its institutional footprint from integrations like not only today's discussion as well as MI4 to, the other real-world access pathways that we mentioned prior through Mantle Bank and stuff. And finally, we'll hear from the team at Mantle, who are not only driving long-term ecosystem growth through programs like Mental Scouts, but also actively supporting the institutional adoption of mETH Protocol, helping us expand its reach through funding, integrations, and community alignment. So before we begin, we'd like the guests to introduce themselves. So maybe we can start with Daniel.
Thanks, Joe. Hey everyone. My name's Daniel. I'm the CEO of Republic Technologies, and I've been in the crypto space for a while, but do come from a TradFi background, specifically in asset-backed finance. And so here, I think when we took over this company to go and pursue this Ethereum-backed strategy, really is in my blood, and excited to go and deliver shareholder value where we can.
Awesome. I pass the mic over to John.
Hey guys, John here from mETH Protocol. I lead growth at mETH. So this spans for it's a very broad term, but basically anything that's exciting about Ethereum, anything exciting about staking, I tend to take a look at it. So yeah, just really excited to be here to chat with Daniel, Andrew, and Joe as well on all things that make Ethereum exciting. So looking forward to the questions.
Yeah, I guess I'm last. So, hey guys, I'm Andrew, and I lead the Mental Scouts program where I work with 40 scouts consisting of top industry leaders like David from Lead Block Beat Panda Ventures, Guy from Etina, Nick Van Eck from Agora, and many others. The scouts recommend high quality founders that they want to support, and the program award grants and other ecosystem resources to support these projects. In the current cohort, we are targeting early stage projects looking to deploy on their first ecosystem, and on the other end of the spectrum, more mature projects considering an instance on the Mental network.
Thank you, guys. It's quite a stacked list today, and I know a lot of people here may have seen John and me on camera before, but I think this is actually Andrew's debut from the Mental Scouts program side, and also Daniel's very first time, with this big of an integration happening. And like I said, we're very proud to have them here today to fully introduce themselves, get to know who's the people working behind the scenes, as well as go deep into the partnership today. So I'll go right into Daniel actually. So, Republic Technologies, you guys manage the Ethereum treasury for the medical company, which is the publicly listed company that I went through earlier. Could you tell me more about, what Republic Technologies does and why your team decided to make that decision to incorporate mETH into the treasury?
Yeah, Joe, happy to. So Republic Technologies is a company that my team and we took over back in February, start deploying this Ethereum-based strategy. And since February, we've been building out the team, making a lot of partnerships, and just working our way both locally and globally to really go and drive the Ethereum name. And one of the key parts that we think is beneficial for Ethereum treasuries is the native yield that we are able to generate. And so I think that's something that our shareholders very much are looking for. And when we were exploring the various yield generating options, I think that obviously someone like yourselves is a great partner. And when we go and start looking, and we actually met with Andrew and with Jonathan. I personally sat down with Jonathan multiple times in Singapore to really discuss how we can work together, things that may be on the horizon, and really once we saw that the vision very much did align, it became a pretty easy decision to go and add mETH. And so, I think that when we go and start thinking about yield, there's a lot of different opportunities for us, and that'll be something that we will continue to explore and hope to work very closely with the Mantle team on not only just holding mETH, but potentially other things that we can do in the ecosystem.
It's interesting. There's some context there, so it must have been something that's been in the works for a very long time. Spanning Singapore, and then even knowing that you guys met in Dubai, which was actually the first time I heard of it during the Token 2049 event. So off to John. mETH Protocol, as we all know, is the project that created or more so incubated the liquid staking token mETH. So beyond that, from your perspective and your conversations with Daniel as well in the past trying to make this happen alongside Andrew, what makes mETH like the kind of go-to collateral, when it comes to ETH, right? There's a lot other options out there that maybe, I would say arguably more established and long running. So what do you think so?
Yeah, happy to take that question. And I think it's a great one, right? Because at the end of the day, most ETH LSTs broadly offer the same core value, right? So staking rewards for ETH holders. So then comes the question of where the differentiation lies, right? So that's really in the execution. And I think for us, very importantly, is liquidity and security guarantees on that front, right? So in this thinking, in this vein of institutional adoption, as ETH treasuries start to scale, people start to adopt ETH as a proper reserve asset. We've consistently saw the need for yield exposure, but without sacrificing liquidity or operational safety, right? Because that's really something that's core for most of the institutional players, and that's where mETH sets itself apart, right? So I think if we take a look on the liquidity side of things, it's a liquidity first design, right? So in mETH, we have developed a pool where we support less than 1 day unstakes, right? We do have all these OTC integrations where people can do instant redemptions. This is something that's very crucial in our conversations, and we found it's very important to develop, right, with all these institutions that would like to have staked ETH, but are concerned about like what the unstaking period, the waiting time of like 5 to 9 days. It's always a problem, right? But I think the second thing that really sets us apart is really pragmatism, right? So for us, it's security through pragmatism, right? Because on our front, we are integrating directly with tier one custodians, to enable native minting, to ensure that all the different clients of ours have various venues, to basically enjoy institutional grade security if they don't want it to be, held in wallets or self-managed, right? And I think another very crucial point I think that we walked through as well was our response during the Bybit incident, right, where we basically swiftly recovered 15,000 CME for asset holders, and this really reflects the entire priority for us, right? So that essentially mETH is not just built for ETH staking; it's has decentralization as a foundation, but security for us as a non-negotiable. So, I mean, for me, and I think for a lot of people that are using us, really, they do understand that mETH is not just built for, the fact that you have a liquid stake token that you can enjoy yield from, but it's something that serves, the real world needs of institutional ETH holders for security and liquidity.
Yeah, interesting. I think this echoes the sentiment that Daniel earlier said. A lot of institutions, they prefer security, number one, liquidity, and also, the seamlessness, and Mantle has been really going down that track, even through mETH protocol. So off to you, Andrew. A lot of people actually know what Mantle is and also the products. You know how you have mETH protocol, you have function, but I think Mantle Scouts has not really been talked about enough. So maybe you could kind of introduce again fully what it does, Mantle Scouts, as well as how this entire your team ties into the integration with Republic Technologies.
Yeah, for sure. So like I shared earlier, we work with 40 scouts, and then they recommend projects that are either really early stage, so meaning that they are looking for their first ecosystem to deploy on. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the slightly more mature ones that are already live and have a working product, but they are considering a multi-chain approach. That's where we come in with the program together with the scouts to support their journey on Mantle. So Republic's a pretty interesting one because it falls into neither of the two shortlisted project profiles. But then if we take a step back, it's very apparent that Mantle today is no longer just a network. We launch flagship assets like mETH, FBTC, and then new product verticals built upon the network and flagship assets like MI4 and banking. So in the second season, we broaden our scope to include projects that are able to create new use cases and access different distribution channels for our flagship assets. So that's where we started speaking with Republic, and I met Daniel in Singapore and really enjoyed our chat on his thesis on how traditional finance and crypto could converge and how that looks like. So once I made the introduction to the mETH team, the rest was history.
That's interesting. I think, on that end, right, how you guys have this chat, and I feel like you could split it up into the on-chain side and how you do with the more so, I guess, CDFi or TradFi side. And over to you, Daniel. I know we mentioned what really makes or bolster that decision to choose mETH as part of Republic Tech, but in your conversations with people around your industry, institutions looking to enter, in your words or thoughts, what do you think they really prioritize and what are they looking at right now? Are they trying to go down the same route as Republic Technologies, or what do you see is more oftenly popping up now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. I think just to echo what Jonathan and Andrew have been saying, security is a top priority, I think, for us and as well as anyone else who might be trying to enter this space. Like whether it's a dedicated Ethereum treasury or just simply holding some on their balance sheet, I think that this is something that a lot of people are looking at. And when we go and talk to them, some of the more basic items such as custody, such as, understanding the flow of the asset, understanding the liquidity, these things, I think the Mantle team has done a really good job to not only help me understand, but just propagate information throughout the ecosystem. And I think that something that we've been doing on our side for just compliance and everything else is actually working very closely with our legal counsel to make sure that they actually understand that this essentially is just Ethereum, right? I think it's Ethereum and has an added bonus with the yield that's built in and does provide a much better user experience, not only for us, but for anyone else who might be in here. And so once we went through with our council, and then we had to go and really educate a lot of the various other partners. We're working with one of the largest independent brokers in Canada. And so in order to, help drive this and spread the message, and make sure that all our shareholders do understand, current and future shareholders, we think that our brokers must really be able to help us here, right? And so worked very, very closely with them. I think lots of endless nights making sure that they understand Mantle as well. And once they do, then together we can go and not only raise more funds to put into more Ethereum to then help the overall ecosystem, but then we think with more exposure, everyone just starts looking more and more at not only this asset, but this ecosystem, and then the broader Web3 ecosystem as well. So I think that is something we're really, really excited about, and really excited to continue working to help spread this message and do whatever education that we need to do. And one particular thing that we worked through was getting our year-end audit done. And I think that just with the help of our broker and with the help of our legal team, we were able to successfully get that done without any issues. I think that even if some people do understand Ethereum, it is still a little bit of a leap to get to this liquid staking token, and kind of like demystifying it, making sure that people realize it's really much the same thing. And so that went a long way.
So I'm gonna ask Jonathan the next question when it comes to setting up the railroads for that to happen. I'm actually curious, why Ethereum? Why didn't you guys choose Bitcoin? Why do you choose ETH specifically?
Yeah, I think that we see ETH as a productive asset. Like when we look around the entire, call it broader market, right? We see BlackRock coming on and putting a large percentage of their digital assets on Ethereum and in the Ethereum ecosystem. And not only that, but they've been consistently buying over the past, call it 6 to 12 months. And so I think that is something that we are extremely bullish on. And we just want to be able to go and offer other ways for institutions to get this liquidity, like whether they're buying it themselves, whether they're getting exposure through our stock. I think that once the world realizes that this is not just an asset that you kind of hold. I know, not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that the fact that it is productive, you can have a whole really robust ecosystem of decentralized applications here. That's when we start to see the institutions come in, and I think they'll start to explore building. I think the L2 ecosystem really has been built out over the last couple of years to a point where there actually are service providers to go and help the various institutions come on as well. And like one example of that is recently I was at a lunch with the CTO of EY, and from their perspective, we actually are very aligned because the L2 is something that allows these institutions to go and build whatever safeguards they might need to do, whatever type of precautions that will cater to their clients and to anyone who might potentially be working with them in the future.
Very, very interesting outlook. So for John, you know how he mentioned all these kind of partnerships are coming up, and you have noticed as well, being the growth lead, working on all these initiatives. So behind the scenes, right, when bigger partners like I say, Republic Technologies want to come on board, how does ME Protocol kind of facilitate that? Obviously, they won't be going through the traditional route, like let's just say a normal user like me. I'm swapping a small amount of ME to CME for vice versa. How do you make it easy for institutions? There has to be security standards, but what does that mean really?
Yeah, so look, I think for users like you and myself, I don't want to assume maybe you're like a mega whale or something, but at least for myself, it's swapping ETH over staking ETH. It's a very simple process, interacting with smart contracts, so on and so forth. But then once you're dealing with significantly larger amounts of money, it's not just about the action itself that you're taking of staking, but it's the actual holding of the asset, right? Any possible attack vectors, anything that could potentially go wrong, even on your devices or whatever, that becomes a very real issue, right? And so I think for us, really, the core goal for the first 2 quarters of like 2025 was really to have those tier one custodian conversations kickstarted, completed, and that's what we have already going on. So some more of these more interesting custodian integrations will be completed, and so from there, you have the trust of like a battle tested provider, right? Where mETH can be acquired natively, right? All these people can basically be putting in their treasuries or their assets onto these custodian providers, stake natively, acquire the asset, all without it ever leaving the kind of, I would say, air gap platform. And so I think for us, that's really the key of it, right? And in terms of, let's say, getting out of the position, enabling that kind of liquidity, then, it's as simple as that, like the trading platforms that are integrated together with some of these brokerage partners or even the native unstaking queue itself. That's also a way for, some of these larger asset or capital providers to basically go through that process. So I mean, it's not really that different between a normal individual and an institution, but I think it really is, it requires us to work together with all these other more better tested protocols to kind of ensure the security, regardless of whatever happens, before or after any staking actions were taken, so that everyone's assets are safe.
Awesome. And every protocol is very focused on Ethereum. It's a whole thing. I won't even ask you your thesis on Ethereum because it's probably be similar to Daniel's anyway. But in 2025, prior to this, when we went live in 2024, and when I first joined the company as well, it was really largely based on chain. So a lot of the developments that you see was actually based on Mantle Network, and also in tandem with Andrew's efforts with Mantle Scouts. All the people that came to build on Mantle Network would naturally or kind of down the track integrate ME for the other flagship assets that Mantle has. So in 2025, right, what really switched the team to be like, look, we gotta push forward, and there's a bunch of initiatives that we really pushed out. There's the Fix You Vault, there's the MI4. Could you kind of expand on the rationale behind it, as well as what are the other things that the team is working on the institutional side?
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe just unpack that on the two fronts, right? So the rationale itself, it was always on the back of our minds, and I think you're aware of that as well. I mean, there was always something they were thinking about, but in the on-chain part of things was more of the priority at that point in time during the growth period. But right now, exactly right now, as we're seeing, right, in Ethereum continue to mature, as Daniel has mentioned already, like I'm deploying Biddle on Ethereum, tons of other funds also trying to deploy on Ethereum as well. It's really evident that institutions are no longer on the sidelines, right? It's a fact, right? And that's where majority of meaningful capital flows originate, right? From at least institutional angle, right? But even if you look at it from a retail lens, and that's why sometimes we do some of these on-chain activities as well. What we call retail in crypto often, represents early adopters, right? And realistically, for the broader majority still navigating this space, institutions still serve as a bridge, right? On Republic Technologies front, for a user who may not have, access to or the means to be able to understand how to liquid stake ETH or get access to ETH or e-staking, then perhaps Republic Technologies is a much easier way for them to access that. So institutions are the source of capital, but they're also the gateway for retail capital as well. And so for us, because they provide that credibility and risk-adjusted access to flows, that's really where we want to focus on, right? And very much speaking, so from corporate treasuries to asset managers, having that demand for ETH native yield increasing, it comes with that kind of like higher bar, right? Liquidity must be operationally reliable, security must be institutional grade, infrastructure must align with all their needs. And so for us, seeing that happen and seeing those requirements come up, it's a no-brainer for us to, like this, if we want to do this, we want to be on this. A lot of our focus is to go on the institutional side of things in this year and even the year before, right? And I think, we've been doing this for some time, and I think 2025 is really the year to go all in on that.
So there's the Republic Technologies that's already officially, announced last week and then even today. And then there's MI4 and CME Fix You Vault, all these other stuff. And then as you mentioned, custodian partners coming on board with us, basically trusting us as well, which is actually quite a big thing. And on Andrew's side, we have all these things going in the back end, but really the bulk of it happens because of Mantle and, the team like yourself as well, pushing those integrations forward, even with Republic Tech. So in line with those developments that they both mentioned prior, what other things are Mental Scouts working on to make the whole entire kind of onboarding process easier as well? Like, do you have tools planned? What's your roadmap looking like?
Yeah, I think we leverage the network of our scouts. So in this case, for Republic, it's not something that you will end up meeting like Daniel at some crypto conference, right? So we tend to tap in a bit more to our own personal network on the traditional finance side of things. And I feel that at this point of the cycle, a lot more of these traditional finance folks are more comfortable in having the conversations around crypto, as we are seeing more things like Circle going public and Republic being the first mover and the first listed company to hold a liquid staking token, gives us a very good reference and data point on how Web3 and traditional finance could intersect. So at the Scouts program here, we are looking to onboard more of such folks that are crypto curious within the traditional finance space in order to kind of capture more of this new wave of projects, like the recent wave of listed corporate treasuries, like for example SharpLink that just recently announced its round as well. And then the team here as well as the mETH team is really help support and really bridge the educational gap between the more crypto native folks and the traditional finance folks.
Awesome. Are there any other teams you think you're looking out for that will be building on Mental Scouts as well, relevant to this integration within Ethereum, or those are alpha that you can't drop?
I think it's a bit difficult to share what we are working on right now. But yeah, we do have quite a couple of big announcements planned under the Scouts program. So definitely stay tuned to the Mental social channels.
All right. I won't push you on that. So for Daniel, right, before like we go on to the other stuff, like beyond holding mETH on the balance sheet, do you think Republic Technologies or even like affiliated teams will ever explore similar integrations or any other integrations with mETH specifically? Feel free to just speed up whatever.
Yeah, I think I'll have to take a similar, answer as Andrew here. Yeah, you guys think we'll be making announcements over the next weeks and months, so make sure to stay tuned. But one thing I can say is that the Mantle ecosystem is very robust. So we do have, easy access to, say, stablecoin products or potentially even your BTC product there. And so that's some way that we are exploring. And whether or not those goes live in the near future or later, I think stay tuned.
So what's the current like momentum looking like? You just announced it with us. Is there any other future things that you could disclose now? Is more so okay, stay tuned, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a lot of like once we do the education that I was mentioning
Mhm.
earlier, a lot more of these TradFi players are getting more and more interested. I think to both Jonathan and Andrew's point, when people start to really understand, and then I think again, you guys have done a really good job explaining this, throughout all your materials throughout this podcast also. And so once people start to understand, then they start to explore. And we, being the first to go and hold mETH on our balance sheet, we can go and really push that exploration and help, kind of be like a guiding light for a lot of these other institutions who are looking. And I would say that with the whole stablecoin narrative and all the applications being built on top, that can play a very major role. And being able to have just a whole diverse set of stablecoins for different use cases, I think that should help the entire ecosystem. And having the three that Mantle has, I believe it's Athena, Ondo, and one other, Agora. I think that is just a really great way to allow any of these institutions to access this.
No, 100%. I think, liquidity chain, right? That's the kind of tagline that Mentor's kind of adopting now, building the whole sustainable on-chain hub for, kind of any builder, like both TradFi as well as if you're super on-chain DeFi, DGen, etc. We suit, both sides. And then for Jonathan, is there any future plans, for any protocol aside for institutions? Are there any highlights you want to kind of showcase, to the newbie joining this stream, right? What do they have to know about mETH protocol?
Other than this piece of news itself, which is humongous, so I think there's a few other things like maybe in the pipeline I'll talk about how on the operational side of things, we're closely looking at DVD technology just together with our validator operators just to make sure that things remain secure no matter what happens. I think that's something that's very important for us now. Integrations wise, really, a couple of things, looking for stronger pushes with the completion of a few more tier one custodian integrations. Some of the funds and exchanges as well. Those are some of the exciting conversation that my teammates are having. And so I think those will come to light pretty soon. And for those of you who are, still very much in the DeFi trenches, trying to figure out how to farm points and stuff like that. CME is also hyper EVM, first LRT up there. So, just a quick shout out for people looking to get more yield and stack more incentives. Great place to look.
I'm actually getting this question a lot, so I'm not sure if you could say anything about it. But Mental Bank, right? What is mETH protocol's role in Mental Bank, and is there anything else you can share about that as well? It's a hard
That
question.
one I will leave to the Mantle Bank team to discuss.
Okay.
Yes. This is a hard question because look, I think there's a lot of things that the Mantle Bank can do and will do, right? But I think this one we will save it for the Mantle Bank team once they do their release. I think this should be pretty soon at one of the major events. Yeah, so I don't want to steal their line of thunder. So I'll leave it to them to discuss. But I think we'll leave you with this, right? That in and itself, Mantle ecosystem builds with synergies in mind, right? And we pivot fast on things that work and things that don't work. So for us to build out Mantle Bank, a lot of the considerations of like how all our business lines can work together is always there at the back of our heads.
I think it's always quite tough because I like to say it as Mantle and even Republic Technologies. You guys are kind of going on paths that are less trodden. So you know how we have standards for like, okay, we, I guess on Mantle Network you deploy and then you expand, but then no one's really targeting the other side where it's much more skeptical and I guess very grey lines, grey borders where you're not really sure is there any established standards like legally or I guess just structure wise, and Mental's really going heavy into that route in 2025, and I'm very interested to see what else outside of ME protocol developments will happen, and even with Republic Technologies. And it's actually one of the more exciting news, as you all have said. Like, no one has ever done this, and it's a pleasure to have Daniel. Your team trusts us. At the same time, we're continuing to build the best that we can. On Andrew's side, I think mental scouts is really quite a tough thing to hold, and you guys are choosing from the multitude of projects that flood this entire industry every single day. So how do you actually choose the partners that come on board? Like, are there like some standards, especially when it comes to the institutional partner side?
I think the most important decision factor here would be how much we have conviction in the team. So props to Daniel for having me at Hello. So that's why we work so very hard to push them across the line, be it through getting all the approvals from their shareholder. But yeah, I think we are just very happy to have the Republic team on board and making history here on Mantle and mETH.
Awesome. Okay. I guess that's actually all there is to it. Like, it's just going through the bulk of the partnership and getting to really know the people who's make this all possible. And you three are really quite legendary. No, shout out to the other BD team as well, across Mental, Republic Tech, as well as ME Protocol. And do you guys have any last words or any sharings? I'll start off with Daniel first.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, just keep your eye out. We'll be doing a lot in the Ethereum and Mantle ecosystems, and we'll continuously be raising money to go put onto our corporate treasury. So we have one round coming up, and then another sizable one. So I think stay tuned, and we'll be making rapid announcements over the next weeks.
Awesome. Off to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think I've said most of what I say. So I think at the end of the day, just follow us, right? Follow Jo, right? She's the one spilling all the alpha as well. More things in the works for the mETH team on the institutional side of things. At the end of the day, no matter where we grow on the DeFi or the institutional end, it helps the protocol, it helps our community as well. So yeah, keep a close watch on us.
And you, Andrew, please spew some alpha about Mental Scouts. A lot of people don't know about Mental Scouts.
Yeah, I think you can think of the scouts as a closed ecosystem of individuals that we work closely with, be it founders, investors, or KOLs that are advocates of Mantle. And then above and beyond just supporting projects with grants as well as ecosystem resources, we also ideate very closely with the scouts to target very specific narratives that we are interested in on the Mantle group level. So maybe to give a bit of a teaser, one of the pieces that we are working on right now is how to improve the overall, how to position Mantle better as the go-to Web3 partner as we are moving more towards the institution side. And then we will be announcing a pretty big partnership with a pretty large Web2 consumer brand. So that would be an interesting one to look out for as their user base. It's quite substantial. So hopefully we'll be bringing Web3 to the Web2 folks very soon.
Well, even I heard of that the first time, so that's actual alpha. So okay, so you guys got it. Follow. We actually have a post up on our Twitter, so you'll be able to find the Republic Tech account as well. So give Daniel a follow, give their company a follow, and John, you know him, Andrew as well. They're all tech in the post, and yeah, stay tuned to the announcements, the alpha, all through their accounts. And it's been a pleasure hosting with you guys. So thank you guys for taking the time out to chat today. Okay,
Yeah,
all
thank you,
good.
Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.